After the end of the First World War, Germany was a husk of its former self. Deprived of her colonies, her wealth, and even some of its core territories, it really had been bested by her enemies and rendered weak, at least for some time. But what if this wasn't the case? What if Germany and the Central Powers as a whole were able to defeat the Entente in Ww1? This is the world of Kaisersieg. In this universe, the German Empire has managed to endure against the Russians in the Eastern Front, with a victory similar to our world happening there. The biggest change though is in the Western Front. Here the French Plan 17 is a complete failure, whereas in our timeline it was a success, at least in the start. By 1916, France has been partially occupied, with Paris falling into German hands on the 23rd of March 1950. As the British and Americans land in the parts of France that have not been occupied by the Germans, they meet strong resistance by the French people that had, in the meanwhile, organized into extremely patriotic syndicates, adverse to both the German occupation and the Anglo-American intervention. Meanwhile, in the south, the 12th and 13th battles of the Isonzo River are lost by Italy against the united armies of Germany and Austria-Hungary. This starts a continuous retreat of Italian troops until an armistice is agreed upon due to syndicalist revolution breaking out in various major Italian cities. With the Balkans taken care of previously and Russia and Italy out of the war, the Germans are able to fully concentrate on the Western Front, unexpectedly teaming up with the French syndicalists, with the promise of not taking any mainland territories from them in the newly forming syndicalist France. With their help, the Germans are able to make a final push against the Anglo-American forces, winning the war on the Western Front once and for all. As many more syndicalist revolutions break out in the defeated states of the Great War, Germany has come out of it stronger than ever, expanding their colonial empire to sizes that have never been dreamed before, becoming the absolute hegemon in both the European and the African continents. But the glory of winning such a war cannot last forever, and the German leaders knew this quite well, especially when the war-torn economy started falling apart, as the nation restarted adapting to a civilian economy. This economic crisis, called the Great Regression by economists, was a game-changer for the victorious German Empire, as the pride and general happiness of its citizens fell faster than ever, with many radical ideologies starting to proliferate in the hidden parts of German society. As this wasn't enough, in the east, a three-way civil war had started in the dying Russian Empire. As republicans, leftists, and monarchists fought for power, the German army, hungry for more, entered the conflict, both to protect its recently released subjects and to ensure its own interests. When the Russian Civil War was taken care of, the German army came home, hungry and desiring of recognition for its recently won battles. But the Empire just couldn't afford to pay and maintain these men, causing them to stage a coup d'etat against the Empire, which almost caused the entire German order to fall if it wasn't for an extremely skilled man called Paul von Hindenburg, who proposed an alternative to this mess. The German army agreed to this alternative. And so the German East African Dominion was formed, where the German military ruled as governors of this huge slice of territory, adding it to the recently carved territories taken from the fallen British Empire, which was engulfed into the socialist sphere. The German Empire had to make sure nothing similar to this was ever gonna happen, and to do this they decided to expel the most radical members of society, banning socialist, republican, and syndicalist parties. Therefore, many of these German syndicalists escaped to the newly formed Union of Syndicates, an alliance between the syndicalist worker state, which was basically mainland France, the state of syndicalist Italy, and the syndicalist Republic of Spain. As of 1937, the German Empire remains the sole superpower of the world, but its influence and hegemony are starting to dwindle, as the syndicalists and socialists in the West gain more and more power, and the old realms left over in the colonies of the deceased Entente ally together, furthering their hostilities with the Germans. If things continue like this, who knows if the future of Germany will be bright as the sun that never sets on their empire, or if the gloom of the decadent post-war economy and the enemies of the German Empire will bring darkness to the Kaiserreich.